Good evening, all. Back in Lost in the Lockdown, episode 6 this week. And we are virtually at the halfway point. Episodes 11 and 12. All the best Cowboys have daddy issues, and whatever the case may be, are today's episodes. They are Jack and Kate, respectively, almost like the round robin has completed. We're back to square one almost. So, just before we go anywhere else, I will hand over to Scott, as always, for some statistics and hopefully some interesting birthdays.
There was a few, yes. So episode 11, sorry, yeah, aren't we?
Yep.
This one. So it was because I've got it all on the same file. Funny enough, so I've scrolling down. Sorry, so professional
right.
now. Yeah, this one was written
It's
by
all fun.
written by Javier Grillo Marchwatch again, who wrote House of the Rising Sun earlier on the season. Directed by Stephen Williams, who is one of the in-house directors. He directed over 20 episodes, I think 26 or 25 in total between this and season 5. So he wasn't on the books for season 6, but he held a producer credit on the show, and he also recently he was executive producer on Watchmen, so he's got that Lindelof connection still there.
Fair enough.
Air date was December 8th, 2004. This had 18.8 million viewership in the US, which was 1.7 million improvement from the previous week. So they're definitely starting to tick over those viewers now. They're kind of midway through, and they're finding the audience by the looks of it. Birthdays. There's a couple of interesting ones. Kim Basinger, or Basinger. I don't know how you meant to say it these days.
I think it's Basinger.
It is Basinger.
And funnily enough, the only way I know that is because I've just seen the Simpsons episode where her and Alec Baldwin are in it, and Homer pronounces it wrong.
I think there's like a joke in. Maybe is it The Simpsons? No, sorry, Family Guy. When the doctor who's doing the test on Peter says, "I don't know how to quite say this." Kim Basinger, Basinger. One of the only rare funny moments in Family Guy. Herself, Rick Baker, who we know is a massively influential effects artist. Terry Hatcher, famous for GoldenEye, she was in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, World Is Not Enough.
Tomorrow Never Dies.
Tomorrow Never Dies. One of the Bonds.
Yep. And Lois Lane.
Yeah, and Lois Lane. Sorry, in the Lois and Clark, Superman. And the big one, we've got a twofer this week on Lost Alum. It's Boney and Charlie. Both of their birthdays fell on this day as well.
One's better than the other. No, I'm sure Ian Somerhalder's a lovely man.
Well, it's great because we get a bit of Boney in this week's episode and in episode 12 as well. So yeah, I think it's kind of significant enough that we can mention it. That's
Absolutely.
That's the birthdays on December 8th.
Smashing. So that's perfect then, because that leads into, especially with Charlie. Charlie's involved quite a pinnacle point of episode 11.
Yeah.
So we will go straight into it, chaps. So this is Mr. Jack Shepherd's hour yet again in the flashbacks. So we'll begin there, as we always do. So these flashbacks again, we always talked about daddy issues prior to this, and obviously I'm not trying to reference the title just yet, but daddy issues have been a prevalent thing throughout the series thus far. I think we've said that the majority of the core cast up until this point have all got father problems in some capacity. Mostly Jack himself, but Locke, even Sun and Jin to an extent, Claire by extension, although you don't know that just yet. So there's all these factors that are getting played into it, and this is another perfect episode alongside Christian, his dad, and a perfect example of Jack's stubbornness, I guess. So the episode begins, or at least the flashbacks begin, should I say, with a woman flatlining on the table in Jack's operation, and Christian, or at least you think it's Jack's operation, should I say, and his attempts to revive her, but Christian's forcing him to call the time of death. And it's later revealed that it was actually his operation that Jack took over for shady reasons.
Liquid lunch reasons.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I'll just say this now that like I love Christian as a character. He's so flawed, and I think John Terry is amazing, not the footballer. Just to clarify,
Yeah, he needs to.
Just to clarify, everybody or anybody who's listening, I'm referring to the actor John Terry, who has starred in many 80s and 90s action films.
Yes.
And often dies in them. But yes, John Terry, the actor who plays Christian Shepherd, I think he's fantastic, especially as a bit part character. But he's such a pinnacle aspect of this show, as we jumped way further forward a few weeks ago to mention that. But you're really starting now to get a sense of what has shaped Jack. I know in his first episode, or at least his first flashbacks, he started to get an idea of why he was the man he is with his dad, often berating him, essentially trying to get him to man up. As I don't like that phrase, but that's the first one that comes to mind. Essentially, get him to be like him in a way. And yeah, like you say, Scott, the liquid lunch. Now, I don't think that that's very good for a surgeon, but he's got a problem, hasn't he?
Yeah, as we see from the Sydney flashback when Jack goes to find him, and we find his empty bowl. So we already have that kind of knowledge that he either had an issue at the time of his death, or he had like an ongoing sort of alcoholism sort of problem going on.
Is that the little bit where the hotelier says, "Oh, look at his drawer," that we had a joke about? Yeah. Hard liquor.
Yeah, go home. He's just it's went out to a party.
But I think the revelation, though, that it's actually Christian's operation. I mean, when he calls the time of death, there's no remorse for that fact. But when you know that that's his operation, and that obviously Jack's tried to come in and save this woman's life, and it's obviously revealed a bit later on that Christian, unknowing, well, he didn't mean to, obviously, but under the influence of alcohol, he's killed this woman. Mm-hmm. And we start getting into a bit of procedural drama, I guess, because he convinces Jack to omit this from the report because Christian will lose his medical license.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now, Jack agrees to this, but you could tell that that's not his way of thought. But again, it's like we said in the first Jack episode, at least I believe we said this, where as much as he doesn't agree with his dad, he's always trying to please him. He just wants to be loved almost.
He's sort of in the scene where Jack goes into his office, where he wants him to sign off on the details and everything. He sort of, I guess he kind of gaslights him into signing. I guess it's like, this isn't just my career, this is my life. It's very well, I guess it is blackmail of a sort. Jack obviously doesn't want to disappoint his dad, but at the same time he's got that sort of strong moral center to him, whereas Christian, maybe from years of doing the job he does, again, I don't know if we find out, because he's lost that. It's become maybe a day job to him, whereas Jack has the I must be virtuous and good for every single thing, whereas Christian, not so much.
It's probably clear that Christian's apparent alcoholism is kind of hampered his moral view, maybe his moral compass, whereas Jack still has that moral center, as you say. So.
But there is that, like you've also said, there is definitely that definite potential gaslighting. There's definitely that pressure that he's guilt tripping him almost. He's trying to. He's definitely putting that. He's got that influence over him. Basically, it's that. I not to say I can relate, but I know from my past with my dad. I've not seen him for quite a long time, but this episode, I distinctly remember that when this first aired, it, for weird reasons at the time, it definitely resonated with me. Purely because of the way Christian behaves with Jack. And it's not to say that like my dad had like a hold over me in a way. But there was definitely that, just a few choice words here and there, quite an impressionable age. I'm not saying Jack is an impressionable age, but he's still got that. He just wants to be loved, and he'll do anything to get there. He'll do anything to try and get that respect and appreciation that he thinks his dad doesn't have for him. So it's definitely a resonating episode. It's one of my favorites.
Does he any time use the word like son to try and, because when people sparingly use the word son when they're talking to like their children, when they're just calling by their first name, and then when they start randomly using the word son, it's normally for dramatic effect to kind of imply that they're trying to be a bit more emotionally manipulative to get them on their side. I'm not sure Christian does that, because I know in like because we're jumping way ahead, in the finale, Christian is very, very fatherly in that last scene between him and Jack in the church.
Definitely.
And it's kind of like a complete 180 of how he is here. So I'm not sure if he actually uses that language to any kind of effect to get Jack on side a bit more easily. That might have been something that I've just picked up on.
No, I definitely think you're right.
Or language
he's very,
effect.
Yeah, he's very cold is the best way I could put it. I was going to say standoffish, but he's just very cold, and like you say, it could be to do with his descent into alcoholism, because he seems like that with everyone. He's very flat, a very flat tone to his voice. He doesn't really seem to care that for one reason or another he's accidentally killed this woman, and Jack's heart's breaking. One, because he couldn't save this woman, which, as we know, that's his big thing. He's the superhero of the series. He's Action Man almost. He's the doctor that will go to absolute lengths to save as many people as possible, and he won't accept no for an answer.
Yeah.
So with that, sorry, go on, Scott.
Sorry, I was just going to say, Christian also says to Jack when Jack kind of says to him like you severed her artery, you killed her, and he's like, oh well, accidents happen. So you just from that line, as a doctor, as a surgeon, by saying that accidents happen, you've clearly just lost all kind of sense of your duty in that position. So it's clear.
And I just want to give another shout out to Mr. Matthew Fox, as always, because I think going through this entire run that we'll do, I will, every chance I get, I'll shout that lovely man's name out. But I'll just say I love that moment where he just kind of goes, "How many drinks did you have at lunch, Dad?" And you're just like, oh, I just think the way he delivers that line is fantastic.
He's very what's the word? Aware. He's very aware. He can read people very well, and he can sense things quite easily. He does it with Kate as well. In the next episode, he senses but she's talking shit.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, definitely, he's great in this episode again.
See, that's it. I think it's mostly a consistent thing with Jack. His episodes, off the top of my head, there's very rarely a bad Jack episode.
I'll be honest, his flashbacks are my favourites.
Without a doubt, I completely agree with you.
Yes. I really enjoy his backstory.
Which I guess is kind of the point, because they are, I guess, as the series progresses, they are the two focal points of the show, almost.
Yeah.
But so anyway, we'll just move on a little bit. So Christian's got Jack to try and cover up. Well, he has got him to cover up. He convinces him to cover up the details of the surgery, removing the fact that he was inebriated and accidentally killed this poor woman. And then we get that wonderful, almost courtroom scene. Again, that aspect of procedural drama, but there's a lovely little moment before where Jack, I believe, is walking down the corridor in the hospital, and there's a man in the distance talking with Christian, who's clearly upset and angry at the same time. And Jack says to the nurse, "Who's that?" And he says, "Oh, that's the husband of the lady." So there's I'm trying to think of the word here. There's obviously some intention there. It's not a happy conversation, which then leads to obviously Christian being sued, or the hospital anyway is getting sued.
Mm-hmm. I thought there was Sorry,
go on.
No, it's just in that scene where Christian is talking to the husband or the boyfriend or whatever. It focuses in on him. Unless I missed something, it focuses in on Christian like putting his hand on the man's shoulder, which is something that he did to Jack just in the scene before.
Yes,
and it just sort of made me think, like this means nothing. It's an empty gesture. It's like I'm comforting you, but I don't really care, which I think is what leads Jack to do what he does. Obviously,
yes, absolutely. That's a good point, and also I guess that'll feed into Jack's feelings of anger towards his dad, because ultimately he's no different to that man. This is his son. I'm his son. That's my dad. But he's giving the same empty gestures, the same empty promises to the common man on the street, and I'm just that person. I'm nothing to him. So Christian's downfall is really interesting. I think it's a really interesting character arc. But like we say, we get to almost the courtroom scene in the board meeting, discussing what went wrong in the operation, and you can see the pain on Jack's face, that he cannot stand what he's having to say, listening to his dad, who I must say is very convincing, but that's just kind of the natural charisma I think John Terry has.
He's probably done it many times before when Jack wasn't
does,
involved.
I was just about to say in my notes, I've got it where it gives the impression that he's done this. This isn't his first rodeo, almost.
Yeah, definitely.
Which also kind of worried me slightly, because I just think after a certain amount of time, surely the hospital had fire him,
bodies. I don't know. It's just an accident.
Let's just check the reports. Christian Shepherd. There's 20 people downstairs, and but you get the impression this ain't his first rodeo. Whether it's him that's the cause or he's assisting, these kind of lawsuits. But then obviously you get the dramatic reveal that unfortunately the dead lady was pregnant, and clearly Christian knew that. So you get that immediate backstabbing vibe, and I guess it feeds into the gaslighting as well that we've already mentioned. He will go to any lengths with a family member such as Jack, or the every man on the street like the husband, just to get out of something almost.
Yeah, definitely. When Jack hears Christian drop the bombshell that the lady was pregnant, I kind of the scene in Jaws where Roy Scheider's kind of on the beach and does that classic zoom shot.
Yeah,
I kind of felt it could have used something like a big dramatic shot, because his face was just like he was.
It's a classic Vertigo shot.
Yeah, he just looked absolutely fucking pissed, and it was so good.
But again, don't you think? Sorry, Matthew Fox yet again, but don't you think he sells both the betrayal, the anger, and the sadness all at once? It's just like he's literally had a ton of bricks thrown at him.
Yeah, it's really very good, because like Lost, I've noticed it, and like Lost is a show that deals in very, very extreme close-ups.
Yes, definitely.
The whole screen is just somebody's face a lot of the time. And yeah, as you say, it's just the whole thing is just etched on Jack's face there. It's very, very good acting.
It's just the look of pain again.
Yeah.
I just want to give him a hug almost. It's the ultimate betrayal, and I don't blame him at all. You can tell it pains him even then, even in that split second where he's been told.
Yeah.
It clearly pains him to sit forward and say, I want to recant my statement and change it. And even then when he's doing it and explaining it, Christian's like, don't do this, which obviously clearly throws himself under the bus, because he's obviously knows what Jack's doing, and everyone around them must think, hang on a minute,
well, what's
he telling him not to do?
His judgment has definitely been impaired, both in terms of his profession, but also in his personal life and his mental state. Because really, if he obviously knew that the woman was pregnant, he should have really said that to Jack. He should have known about that, because because that would have been really the one thing that would have tipped the scales, I reckon. So he should have really told Jack, so she was pregnant, but nothing we can do. He should have mentioned that to him in the conversation in his office instead of leaving it. So I think he's.
Well, I guess you got to think of it this way. Jack can't stand to lose a life, and he's lost 2 in 1. Almost, and that's obviously the last straw.
But the committee would have brought it up anyway. That's the thing. I'm not sure. it might just be a writing issue. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's definitely going to get brought up at the hearing, but for Christian not to say it about beforehand, just, I don't know, maybe a hole there, a plot hole in the writing.
I think I know exactly what you mean, but sometimes when the drama is so well acted, sometimes, I mean, I must admit I didn't think of that. Because I was just like, whoa.
It only just occurred to me, but we'll give it a pass just for the sake of drama. Yeah, definitely. But it literally just occurred to me. I was thinking, well, why did he say that?
Maybe we should, alongside Shannon watch, maybe we should have like a plot hole watch, because it will get that far. As much as I love this show, we will get to that point. We will get to that point, but just to see whether we will let it slide or we have to comment on it. And I think in this case, you can let this one slightly ride out.
Yeah.
So those are really the flashbacks in this episode. Obviously, the ultimate judgment leads to Christian's removal from his position, his state of power, and obviously is what I guess is the precursor to sending him on his bender in Australia, which obviously leads Jack to chase him and gets him on the island. So there's a lovely bit of, I guess, it's the domino effect almost, or putting the chess pieces in place to make everything come together. Which then moves us, unless someone else has something to say about the flashbacks.
I just the only other thing I just thought of there now. I don't know how the episodes have been structured, which ones were filmed when, but I thought it was quite interesting that these past two episodes have both their like final flashback has both ended with one character refusing to do something in like a legal setting. I just thought that doesn't mean anything. I just thought it was quite interesting. You had Claire last week not signing the adoption papers, and then you had Jack this week refusing to sign off on the surgery report, I guess. Again, I don't think it means anything. I just thought it was quite interesting. Maybe there was like a reshuffle, because it seems strange that they would do that 2 episodes in a row. But
I must admit, I think they did that. We didn't discuss it because I think it was a minor note, and I think I read about it a bit later on. But I think definitely in the earlier weeks, I think like episode 4 was shot after episode 5. But in the order that it was aired, it wasn't. It suited it better to put Walkabout before episode 5, which I forgot the name of, unfortunately. But do you know what I mean? So it wouldn't surprise me if that's what they did, because especially we're getting into the point now where, with last week and Solitary, we're definitely well into the mythology, or at least we're starting the mythology. And this episode definitely only continues to serve that mythology and keep the mysteries up. So with that in mind, we'll go to the island where I've got in my notes, having researched this, it's day 16. So just over 2 weeks on the island. And we are back at the caves learning from Hurley that one survivor is not on the manifest, and that is Mr. Ethan Rom. He's not on the manifest, and Charlie and Claire are missing. So birthday boy Dominic is missing, and so is Claire.
So what happened at the end of last week? So Ethan just turns up, and then we don't see what happens to them, do we? We just get the close the episode.
Ethan turns up with the creepy look on his face.
That's it.
It's
the
kind
dead
of
eyes,
that,
yeah.
Yeah, it's that two-way split where the revelation in the cave occurs at the same time as him finding Charlie and Claire, because she was in like not fake labor, but you know what I mean. She was having contractions.
Yeah.
So.
And they have Hurley comes back and tells them about Ethan, and then Jack and Locke run into the jungle, and they find it's like Claire's, I don't know, Claire's jacket. That's what it is. Yeah, they find Claire's bag, and then they're like, oh, they must be taken.
And that prompts a classic line, which as you keep watching the series, in the previously on Lost, the segment of Locke saying, "I think they've been taken," occurs for like the next 8 episodes. It's ridiculous. I've heard that line so many times when I was doing the rewatch, and you'll know what I mean. Because they keep trying to refer to the others, so the only way to do it is by putting that line in the previously on bit. Always made me laugh. But yeah, so after a bit of an absence, Mr. Locke is quite heavily featured in this episode alongside Jack. Now, they've got the 3 distinct footprints, which always, to me, prompts the fact of how they give Ethan that otherworldly vibe, I guess. We're still early on in the series. We don't know who these others are, other than that they've always been there. And the fact that he can somehow seemingly carry two people, one of whom is pregnant, and I think it's touched upon in the episode itself, so it's not technically a plot hole. But always at the time, especially when I was watching it, and even now, it's quite scary, the thought of it.
Yeah.
Who is this man? What can he do?
I think they say, I think Locke says, when they're trying to track him, they say, oh, look, there's drag marks. And then they say, well, how the fuck can like one man, like a fairly average sized man, drag two people? And
because he learned from his cousin.
That's true.
Tom Cruise could easily do that.
Oh yeah, do it all himself. No stuntman involved.
No, forget any like ropes or alt like that. He just does it.
Does it for real. I'll drag him for real. It's fine.
I'll jump off a cliff. Why not? But yeah, and you get the personality clashes again between Jack and Locke, which obviously is a long running storyline. But John Locke is very he wants. Correct me if I'm wrong here. He wants to go back to the cave, take a breath, figure out the next move. Whereas Jack's like, right, I'm going for it, and he just charges into the forest.
Yeah. I thought it was quite funny. Like Locke's very very passive aggressive towards Jack in these bits.
He is,
especially when they catch up to him again. It's like he's like, "Oh, it's a good job you were going in circles. Otherwise, we'd never have found you."
It's such a sassy comment, isn't it? Because it's like Locke could walk at a snail's pace and Jack could sprint, and he'd still catch up with him.
Yeah,
because he's just running in circles.
When it happened in the episode where Jack chased after Christian to the cliff, like he runs all through the forest, runs down falls down the cliff, and then 2 seconds after, Locke's there. He's like, "Hello." How did you get there so quick? Just as a shortcut already.
Because he's fucking John Locke, mate. He does what he wants.
Don't tell what I can't do, you know.
Yeah, don't tell him what he can't do. He's the Flash. He can do anything. So yeah, Locke decides to gather like a hunting party, but Jack obviously sprints off on his own. And this is where we get a 3-man team of Locke, Kate, and Booney to help. Well, find Jack now as well. He's buggered off. In addition to Ethan, Charlie, and Claire. And they find one of Charlie's knuckle bandages. I've got written down. That's right, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah. They find one of his knuckle bandages that it's almost like the breadcrumbs leaving the trail. But they find 2 separate trails, and they do the Scooby-Doo thing of splitting up and looking for clues. That's all I could write down.
It is basically what it is, yeah.
It's basically Scooby-Doo, isn't it? It's like there's only one way to take this storyline forward. Let's split up and look for clues. So Locke and Boone go off in one direction, and Jack and Kate go the other, which I guess in the grand scheme of things was always going to happen. Obviously, Jack and Kate have the will they won't they aspect to them, but they are good characters together on the island, and Boone has shown that he's basically Locke's protege, so it makes sense from a story perspective to put 2 and 2 together like that and split them off.
Yeah, there's a nice moment there where Locke, up until now, Locke has been the one that notices all the tracks, and then there's a point where Kate starts to say something, and obviously we know Kate's backstory, but Boone and Locke obviously don't. And there's just a wee moment where Locke's like, "Huh." It's just the brain's always taking over. It's like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Doesn't he say something along the lines of, "Oh, there's more to you than meets the eye," or something along those lines?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. Just thought that was a nice wee.
No, I completely agree, and that's a good point. Actually, is that it's easy to forget that we know more than the actual characters now, because obviously of how the nature of the show and how it's structured.
Yeah.
But it's very easy to forget that Locke doesn't know about Kate still at this point. Those little moments are like almost Easter eggs to the audience.
Yeah. It's like I think we mentioned last week or maybe the week before. I can't remember, but it's like whenever Charlie says to Michael, it's like, "You didn't hear about the polar bear?" It's like, "You didn't hear that Kate's a fugitive?" That sort of thing. But no, it was nice. And then obviously with this, you have the start of Boone and Locke which goes on for the next couple episodes. I just thought it was quite nice to see how early that started, because I'm fairly certain we're still a good bit away from Boone's fate. So I didn't remember it taking as many episodes as this.
No, I agree. I always forget myself. I know I've rewatched this a number of times over the years, and it's like I was saying to you earlier, John, about kind of like The Simpsons and a bit of a weird analogy, but rewatching episodes and realizing that certain ones were way earlier than I thought they were.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, well, I'll just briefly touch on it now, but I didn't realize the Hatch was this early in the season, for example.
Yeah.
And also how long that storyline goes on for in season 1.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this is episode 11. It starts here, and it's effectively the rest of the season. It's 12 episodes easily.
Yeah. So I thought it was just like 2 that dealt with the Hatch, like right towards the end. They find it, they can't get in, and then they get in, like the one after the next episode. But
yeah.
It's not, it's like the whole season.
You always remember, like, the shot of them blowing the hatch and looking down and it ending, fading to black.
Yeah.
And you always remember them with the dynamite. But it's that build-up, that follow-up, and... You know, there's a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I guess like
even
that's...
if it's just...
Sorry, go on,
John.
Oh no, I was just going to say.
You go.
I was just going to say. I think it works really well. You know, to have it spaced out, and because you have so many characters, like we said, you know, Locke had been kind of missing for a couple episodes, but there's so many characters you don't really mind, and it doesn't matter so much because you're getting, you know, so much of say Charlie and Claire that you forget about Locke, and you're getting then a Hurley episode. Every episode checks in with everybody more or less, so you don't really mind that it takes so long, say, for something like the Hatch to reach its conclusion, because there's so many other interesting things happening with the rest of the 16 people cast, something like that.
Roughly, yeah. I think again that's the testament to the writers as well, because ultimately, up until this point, well, say Solitary, you've had the full mythology starts to rear its head, but up until that point, you've had these odd mysteries, of which you have been keeping count of, John, and really, it's the characters that you're paying attention to.
Mm-hmm.
They're the ones that you give a crap about. Obviously, that's the whole point, and everything that's happening around them is just kind of like in your peripheral vision, but it's got to be interesting too.
Yeah.
So when you get to something like this, it's that synergy. I keep saying synergy in these podcasts, but it's that synergy of, okay, these characters are really awesome, and now we've got all this wacky shit going off. This surely can only get better, of which it does in this early instance anyway. But yeah, I know what you mean. It gives the confidence in the audience that you can drop a character like Locke for 3 episodes almost, and not worry that when he comes back, he's going to be any less than he was before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's been so perfectly introduced in Walkabout that they have the confidence to say he's just going to appear occasionally, you know, cutting the boar, talking about a moth kind of thing. Those little moments, and it's perfect. It's perfect. So where were we? Oh yeah, so the knuckle bandages. They've done the Scooby-Doo. They split up, and I've got it written down here that it's Jack and Kate who are following the correct trail because they keep finding more of Charlie's bandages. And then the pathetic fallacy comes in. It starts raining. I'm bringing in a bit of my English language degree there. Starts raining, pathetic fallacy. And Jack believes he hears Claire screaming in the distance. And Jack, in his usual Jack way, he runs after it, and he falls down an embankment, and he finds Tom Cruise's cousin.
I want to say, when I saw it, there's no way he was going to get up that embankment, because it was like vertical, like, in terms of its like angle. There's no way he's going to get up it. But,
One thing I will say, not necessarily a criticism of the show, but it's one of those, like, you look back and you think you could have probably done that better, but the way some of these early episodes are edited are really funny in terms of I know I've said about geography in the show, but especially when they fall down things, because the shot before, they could be walking on absolute flat ground with no indication of a dip anywhere. And then the next shot, it's like Hot Rod where they're falling down the cliff. Do you know what I mean? And all I could, honestly, I'm rewatching this, all I could think was Hot Rod. because it starts raining, he runs, it looks flat, there's no indication he's going to go anywhere other than straight forward, and then next shot, he's rolling down the embankment. You got to have a giggle at these things.
Well, there's this going back to episode where Jack falls off the cliff. He pretty much does that same thing. He like just rolls down the hill for ages, like like in Hot Rods.
I think that's your favourite bit, Scott, isn't it? Because you've referenced that more than any part of any episode so
everything
far.
Everything crammed into one. It's mythology, it's flashbacks, it's character development. It's all rolled into one scene.
Locke appearing from nowhere.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a great scene.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. But yeah, this again, it lends this little sequence after falling down. Obviously, Ethan's clearly at this point stronger physically, anyway, than Jack, which lends into the potential. I guess at the time when I was first watching this, and feel free to disagree, but that supernatural element that it seems to be indicating, you still don't know about who these people are.
Yeah.
And he clearly overpowers Jack. I think he's got his foot on his chest and he's warning him that he'll kill one of the either Charlie or Claire if he doesn't stop following them. And then there's a bit of a fist fight, but Ethan easily wins.
But do we actually know if that was real? Because Kate says she didn't see him, and Jack's like, "Oh no, he attacked me. He punched me in the face." And Kate's like, "No, you just fell over. You hit your head." But do we know if he was in Jack's head or if Ethan's just super, super clever?
I think it's meant to imply that Ethan's a bit clever, and but that's a good point, actually.
But Kate doesn't hear what we perceive to be Claire screaming, but the audience hears it, and then we see Ethan as well. So,
and I must admit, isn't there a line somewhere where they say that at the start of the episode Jack's not been sleeping, or have I gone? Or was that earlier on in the series?
I think he does mention. Oh, does he? Now you say it, I think that he does mention it.
Because when he sprints off and Kate's like, "You need to stop."
Yeah.
Because you're knackered. You need to stop. You need to go back or something. We'll resume this later. And he's like, "No, I'm Jack. I need to keep going." Yeah, it could be. It could be. You could read into it both ways. It could be literal or a bit of a figment of his imagination, I guess. Maybe a bit of his guilt for, in his own way, feeling that he's got to protect everyone and he didn't. So
the fact that either explanation would be perfectly acceptable, I think just is fine anyway. Do you know what I mean? So it says a lot about the show. So
it's like still not a plot hole. So that's like 3-0 in this episode in favour of it not being a plot hole. That's fine by me. That's fine by me. Well done. Is it Javier? Who wrote the episode? Mr. Javier. Yes.
Javier Mark.
Good writing. Yeah, good writing. But he does that thing where he regains consciousness. So yeah, I guess him tumbling down the cliff could have hit his head, could have dreamt it quite easily. Regains consciousness and he decides to continue on, and here's the pinnacle point for birthday boy Dominic, and a very heartbreaking image of Charlie being hung from a tree.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's pretty grim.
I think we mentioned it before when we first started that this is, especially for network TV at the time, that it can sometimes go quite far. I think we discussed like the blood spatter in the pilot when the pilot gets eaten by the monster, by Smokey. You wouldn't really get that now. I mean, Hannibal's an exception, obviously, but they go quite far in these things, and even though there's no blood or anything, it's a very disturbing image.
Yeah, and they cut him down obviously, and then Jack starts his CPR, his TV CPR.
Oh yeah.
But like it goes on for a long time, and again, I'm going to mention the score because like it really makes you believe that Charlie has died. Yeah. Like the music even cuts out, and you think, "Oh, we're going to go to like it's an act break." Yeah. And then Jack's like, "Nope, I'm just going to keep going."
I'd just like to say as well, I've got a few friends who trained to be doctors and whatnot in the past, and have subsequently gone on to that. But I know for a fact that the way he's hitting Don Monaghan's chest, he's cracking ribs.
Yeah, like I've got written down here.
He's cracking ribs.
I've written down here. He literally punches Charlie back to life.
I put that as well. He beats him up back to life.
I mean, I'm pretty sure as well. Even some of the sound effects sound quite crunchy.
Oh yeah, you do. You hear some like bones to start being like crunched and thumped, and
maybe they messed up the audio between Jack's fight with Ethan and Jack's CPR.
Just reused
I don't think the problem there is the fact that Charlie's heart stopped. It's the fact that Jack's given him 12 cracked ribs or whatever.
Caved him in, yeah.
That's not his problem. He's got to take him back to the cave and recuperate from that. Bloody yell, Jack.
I just put. Sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just another stupid observation. To say, Charlie hasn't spoken. It's like, no wonder he's not spoken. He's got 12 cracked ribs.
Like a broken larynx as well, probably. Why are you talking, Jack? I don't know.
But I completely agree with what you're saying, that it would have been a big thing as well at that point to kill, arguably one of the biggest stars of the show, or at least a well-known actor within the show that early on. It's completely believable, even though I've watched it many a time. You still get that sense that that's the sign of a good scene, the way it's, especially with the music, the way it's done. You can watch it time and time again and still think, oh shit, this is going to go sideways.
Yeah, and there's some really good, like one of the things I feel, again, not an actor, but one of the things I would imagine is hardest to do on camera is either cry or laugh. And Kate does, Evangeline Lilly does some really, really good cry acting here. And it sells that scene really, really well.
She does.
I put that as a note. I put Kate's crying was very convincing, almost set me off. I hate seeing Kate cry.
Okay, I'm going to raise something here. So again, might be a plot hole. I don't know. It's just for the purposes. But they happen upon Charlie. But how long has he been hanging?
I don't know. Well, it could be.
Is the question?
Could be half a day, I guess, because they go after him straight away, don't they? They don't really rest.
But all I'm thinking is, like, if he's been hanging that long, how long's he been dead?
Well, he had a bit of colour in his cheeks. That's his own.
Yeah, he's alright. Because other than that, Ethan's just peering behind a tree going, like, it's proper Scooby-Doo. He's literally just tied him up. He's run behind a tree. He's like, oh shit, they are that close. I best run away. Like, I'll let it slide again. 4-0 in favour of not a plot hole. I'll let it slide because of the drama and the emotion behind it all. And like you say, Evangelina Lilly, whether Kate's a good enough character in my eyes or not, she's lovely. So Jack doesn't give up, and he brings Charlie back to life, which I guess as neatly fits in with his flashbacks with his dad. In this instance, he couldn't save the pregnant lady, but in this instance, he manages to defy all objection. And I guess Kate is almost the Christian in this scenario. She's like, he's gone. There's no way you can do it. There's that parallel. But he does bring him back to life by cracking all his ribs.
I was going to say,
go on, Scott.
Just based on Kate's reaction, which we agree is a very good performance by Evangeline Lilly, but Kate, maybe she just has one kind of extreme of crying. Like, she doesn't have like a scale, because she was really turned it on, and she's only known this guy for 2 weeks. I'm like, would you really cry that much for someone you know, like, barely for 2 weeks? Maybe if it was Jack.
He's the bass player in Drive Shaft, Scott, of course.
Do you think it might be because of how Jack was reacting, and she was crying more for Jack and his kind of torment in not being able to save him? She was worried about him more than Charlie.
Quite possibly. Quite possibly. That'd feed nicely into the character development for sure.
Yeah. I'm going to watch her crying now more often, and I'm going to judge it.
I must admit, she never goes like, it's kind of like straight down the middle. She's never, like, to my mind anyway, wallowing, like she's inconsolable. She can't talk. She can always talk, but she's never quite. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but it's that crying right down the middle where there's a bit of emotion, and it's almost like the perfect amount.
Yeah, she just finds that balance, and there's no there's no sobbing or just subtlety. It's just like, straight here, that's it.
Because you can have a tear in your eye and still talk, but like John's pointed out, it must be one of the hardest things to do on camera, because how do you gauge it? Unless you're actually sad, how do you actually gauge it?
Yes, good point. I think, they obviously have to use do they like use some kind of eye drops to kind of form the to kind of I don't know, agitate the tear ducts I don't know what the science is behind it, but they must have actual coaches that train your voice, maybe, I don't know, to kind of sound more convincing.
I know. Just whilst I'm thinking about it, there was an interview with Bryce Dallas Howard, and I know I'm getting off the subject here. She was promoting Jurassic World, but I can't remember who was interviewing her. It might have been Conan O'Brien, but he basically said, "I hear that you can cry on cue. Can you do it for us now?" And she actually did it, and she is amazing at it. And she literally just kind of sits, looks at him. And you know, when your eyes kind of squint when you are crying or someone cries, your eyes kind of squint a little bit. She does that a little bit, and then she's full on crying. But then she just starts talking to him like normal. So she's not upset, but she can do it. And I just think that's genius right there. How do you do that?
Well, I'm sure John can provide testimony to this, but kids can do this easily. They can just cry to stop whenever they want.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a skill.
It is.
But yeah, like I think I remember. Again, it's not related to Lost, but I think I remember. It was a Kevin Smith interview, and it was about chasing Amy, as far as I remember. Where he said that he told Ben Affleck to just like he would need to cry in the next scene. I can't remember which scene it is in the film, but he said like he just went off by himself for a couple of minutes and then just came back and was like, right, let's go. I'll be able to do this. There must be just maybe there's like some trigger that they would have. You know, you remember something horrible or emotional in your life, and you just draw upon that.
That's the obvious thing, isn't it? You got to think of like the saddest moment in your life.
Yeah.
But it'll probably be something ironic and not that. It'll be like a happy moment, and you instantly associate crying with sadness, but that's probably not the case.
But no, it's really good. It's just very good in that scene. And again, as I say, it
sells. Is very good in that scene.
It sells that Charlie is dead
completely.
And the score,
like you say,
the score's so good in that scene.
Yeah.
And John said that when they cut it, they edited it out, and I was like, "This is really clever. And it could have fooled me." Yeah.
Sorry. Just on that as well. I was on Spotify. I was like listening to the Lost soundtracks, and so the composer Michael Giacchino. You probably already know this, but you know all his track listings are like puns. So the one for this one, and it's probably not in the best taste, but it's called Charlie Hangs Around.
Oh, I love that.
Brilliant.
And again, I was just listening.
I know it's not in good taste, but I do like that.
I was listening to it earlier, and it's just like, I'm just gonna be listening to all these scores now. They're very, very good. I'd recommend going back and listening to the scores just in isolation because they're really, really great.
Just whilst we're on that point as well, I found Mondo last year released a Lost soundtrack on vinyl. It's a three disc vinyl. It's called We Have to Go Back, and it's Michael. What's his surname? Michael.
I think it's Giacchino.
Giacchino. I can never pronounce it. Giacchino did a live concert in Dublin. And I think he played 18 of the tracks across the soundtrack, across seasons 1 to 6, and I will be buying it. So we're back at the caves, finally, after Charlie's been saved. Claire has finally disappeared, and Charlie's referring to they only wanting Claire all along. So once again, you're getting the others finally fully featured, I guess. And that's just really a little neat reference. It's that thing that we've always said where they have to end it on a bit of a twist during these early episodes, especially. But I think the biggest one would be the first inclusion of the hatch. So Jake, what am I on about? Jack and Kate. Jack and Kate split off into a group, didn't they? But so did Boone and Locke. They're still out there at nightfall, and Locke conveniently chucks his torch to Boone, who accidentally misplaces it, and it hits some metal, and we get our first sight of the hatch, which I think I said previously. I can't believe how early it was in the series. I couldn't remember it being this early on that it got introduced.
Yeah, because the pretty much the next 10 episodes, or more than 10 episodes, are all pretty much dedicated to getting that opened effectively. So
it's a good hook to end the episode on, because yet another thing we don't know about this island, and I think it's the first, as like, you imagine it's this deserted island, or at least, you know, it's in the middle of nowhere. The last thing you would expect is a big metal door. So I just think it's a really good hook to end the episode on. Another mystery to add to the list.
Yeah, because I think at this point as well, we're halfway through and we've got pretty much, I think, the base cast all laid out, haven't we? So it's time to really start ramping up the mystery now.
Yeah, yeah.
As opposed to, from a character point of view, from an island point of view, you need something alongside Smokey. So let's go all out, and that's where we get the end, the very end. I do distinctly remember watching that live on Channel 4, and that was definitely a good water cooler moment at school.
Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I'm repeating myself again, but you know, it's really very, very intriguing. Like, it's is it obvious? I can't remember in this episode. Is it obvious there's like a window on it?
Yeah, when they because it's raining and they wipe away like all the mud and the leaves.
Right. Okay.
And you just get like the small window. And I think Locke just says, "Let's find out what it is," and that's where the ending kicks in.
Okay.
I don't think they've established if they can see through it or if it's like frosted or something. I guess there might be some. It might be obscured based on what we know is there, and because it's covered up deliberately. Well, it appears to be deliberately covered up. Yeah,
and then it becomes that fun thing of geography that we've mentioned before, where it's clearly a lot in this episode. It's clearly quite a fair way away from the main camp, but then obviously as it progresses, it gets closer and closer, depending on what episode you're in.
Yeah.
I do like that. I do love that. I've just got a few notes that I've made in terms of the production very quickly. Originally, 2 new minor characters were created to accompany Locke, but then they scrapped that in favour of adding Boone, because obviously that would serve as like a genesis for his upcoming death. So it's pretty spoiler alert again, sorry. It's pretty early on that they decided he was going to die.
I thought there was a nice touch in this episode, actually. You know the way Locke is tying the red like bits of fabric around the tree so he can work his way back in case he gets lost.
Yep.
Boone starts explaining red shirts, and I was like, that's pretty good foreshadowing if you know what he's talking about.
Yeah. I never thought about that.
Yeah, and how does he say something along the lines of John wouldn't make a very good captain or something like that? A nice wee bit of foreshadowing. I thought it was quite good, because obviously Boone's fate is as it is, and when he says that line, he's got like the strips of red fabric over his shoulder. So it's like, okay, I see what you're doing here.
I actually found
laugh.
It's quite funny because John says to Boone that he never watched Star Trek, and I was quite surprised because Locke seems to be like pretty much like the king geek of the island.
Like, he knows Drive Shaft, doesn't he?
He likes his tabletop war games and things like that. So
Does he does know what it is, doesn't he? Or does he just completely have no idea? I can't remember.
He acknowledges it, but he said like he never watched Star Trek, and Boone seemed surprised. And I was like, well, it's even more weird that Boone is a Star Trek fan, because he's like, dude, bro, lifeguard.
He loves Captain Kirk and Spock. And the only other thing that I had was that the Hatcher's discovery was meant to be introduced midway through the episode rather than as a cliffhanger, but I think we'll all agree it works much better as a tease for what's to come rather than midway through. I don't think it's something you can really just chuck in. It wouldn't work as well, I don't think.
No, they very much tread this line of this plot line very, very lightly. They only cut to it now and again, and then you get like later episode, you get Boone talking to Shannon, and Shannon's like, "Where are you going?" On I think Charlie and Jack both ask him where he's been, and they don't actually show you too much. It's very, very subtle.
I must say as well, my taking from this is, even though it is a key mystery, like you say, it's only fair enough, it's been introduced, but it doesn't really come to the fold until fairly late in the season. And from a rewatch perspective, and if you're watching it for the first time, you don't realize how pivotal this is to the rest of the series. It's just kind of thrown in there, and you're like, oh, this could be a number of things, but you don't really realize how much, especially the show's first season, is going to hang on it. And I think that's a really good bit of storytelling.
And effectively, it changes the dynamic of the show for the second season. Everything's completely different because of that one little hatch thing. So they have to do it that way, I think, just to, because we could have got bored of the hatch at this point if they had done 2 or 3 episodes ahead of introducing it. That's it. I mean, your season 2 has got no jumping off point really.
And for my money, the season 2 opening is the best opening of the whole show. So
without a doubt,
yeah.
But we'll get there, as we always say.
Sorry, I was just looking up on, again, Lostopedia. Sorry.
Go on, yeah.
Terry O'Quinn, who plays Locke, was actually, as all actors seem to be, but was in an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation.
He was, yeah.
Oh my god, really?
Yeah, yep. I think he was like an admiral or something.
Yeah, that's what it says here.
Does he die?
It doesn't say, but probably. Yeah, thought that was quite funny.
He's died in a lot of the guest star things that he's been in, bless him. So. Oh, great. That's a good bit of trivia there.
Oh, I have a note here. There's a scene in this episode where Walt and Hurley are playing backgammon, and it reveals 2 things that I don't think, in hindsight, it's obvious, but I don't think we'd known by now. Walt always seems to roll whatever the best combination is, so that sort of plays into his specialness a little bit, I think. And Hurley mentions that that he has money. Which I thought was quite interesting. Just they're just dropped in there. They're not really dwelled upon, but it's just like on a rewatch, you're like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Actually, that is a good point, because it also serves to, when it actually gets to their episodes where it brings all these to the fold, it's not almost a surprise, I guess. It's not just like, oh, we've made up various things for this particular episode. It's always been there. You've just never noticed it. Yeah, that's really clever, though. Next episode. Whatever the case may be. So, this is the 12th episode, so we'll do a brief summary of this one. But did we have any special birthdays, Scott?
It was a Godfather double act on birthdays. Okay. Yeah. Robert Duvall and Diane Keaton, and Hayao Miyazaki as well. Obviously not in Godfather, but he does films.
He does.
Yeah. No, that was it. Really, it was quite a light birthday for this episode, 5th of January.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been me if it was a day later. That would have been my birthday. Oh well.
No, there we go then. Oh, no, interesting fact though, viewership was the highest to date, 21.59 million. So, yeah. So even though the episode we're going to talk about it wasn't exactly the most enlightening or uplifting episode, yeah, it was the highest viewership since original air date.
Interesting. Right. So this is a Kate-centric episode, and for my money, I mean, it's not a terrible episode of TV, but coming off the back of all the best Cowboys have daddy issues, and especially, you got the 1-2 punch before that of Solitary and Raised by Another, it's a bit of a letdown. Probably up until this point, for me, it's probably my least favourite of the rewatch so far.
Yeah.
Personally, but we'll go with the flashbacks, and I think Kate's in Mexico or New Mexico somewhere, and she's doing some criminal business, but initially she's working under an alias to rob a bank, I believe, and then the 3 masked men that come in are actually working with her, and she's having a bit of a love affair with one of them.
She's applying for a loan or something, isn't she, or posing as a business owner or a photographer, sorry. And she's fluttering her eyelashes at this bank manager, and it's all going great. And then and then it all sort of kicks off, and I think she's on the ground, and then some guy goes for the gun.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and then I think he gets sort of pistol whipped or something, and then she gets taken to the back, and then she has smoochies with her beau or something.
Yeah,
that's.
I mean, one. Yeah, go on, John.
No, I was just going to say. I mean, that's basically all that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, at the end, she gets you discover the whole robbery was to get a safety deposit box.
That's correct.
And that's pretty much it.
There was only two things really from a trivia perspective that I picked up on in these flashbacks. So her aliases that she uses is Maggie, but then there's also Meg and Miss Ryan. So Meg Ryan.
Oh, great.
Oh, okay.
And also the safety deposit box number is 815.
Of course it is.
Oh, okay. Very good.
That is literally the only thing I picked up from those flashbacks. And it was only this time, I didn't read into that. I just noticed it when they got it out. And I was like, hang on a minute. but it stands to reason, doesn't it? That because this is a Lindelof episode, actually. So it stands to reason that that's the kind of thing he'd throw in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, go on, Scott. Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say, does it establish how far back this was before her apprehension by the US Marshal? I'm guessing it must have been a considerable amount of time before because she seems to have her shit together, and she's planning these
It's kind of straight into it. I can't think it specifies a particular day.
No.
Again, sorry because I'm always on lost of video whenever we're doing these episodes. It says the flashback takes place in 2002, so that's 2 years, say, before the event.
Prior to the crash. Yeah.
Okay, so 2002. She's in the middle of her criminal
activities.
career.
Yes. Right. Well, and we should just say the only thing within the contents of said safety deposit box is a single envelope.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe she opens it at this point.
No.
In the flashback, she opens it in the flashback and she sees like the envelope, but we don't get to see what's inside it until the on-island stuff.
Sorry, that's what I mean. Yeah, so we've still got a bit of mystery left for us to find out as we go on. So other than that, that's the flashbacks done. Back to the island. So I've got it down as day 21 since on the island. So 3 weeks in, and while swimming near the waterfall, getting a bit saucy with Mr. Sawyer. Okay. I guess this is another thing that I just picked up, but they go underwater and they find some. Did they find some dead bodies and some of the wreckage?
Mm-hmm.
Very Lord
and
of
a
the
suitcase.
Rings.
Yes, very Lord of the Rings. Yes. I'm pretty sure those underwater scenes were filmed in like a pool in LA.
Yeah,
I don't think that was actually.
Yeah,
because they had trouble filming in the ocean. So
yeah, I think it
wasn't clear enough.
I might have read something different. It was last week or before I read it, but apparently, Evangeline Lilly struggled to sort of keep her breath under the water. I don't know. It might have something to do with the depth of the water. I don't know, but yeah, that's definitely correct. They filmed it on a studio or soundstage in LA.
Well, you can tell because I must admit, again, this is 2004, I must say, but at the same time, those corpses look so fake. just chilling under the water.
Like Guy Fawkes.
Yeah, Guy Fawkes in a plane seat. But she finds the suitcase and doesn't want to tell Sawyer what's inside it, so we're immediately got some very clunky exposition and suspicion going on there, but he takes it, if I'm right in thinking.
Yes,
it's very weird how they played that out, because initially he says, that's not your suitcase, is it? And she went, no, you can have it. And then she wants it back straight away. I'm like, why she got to fuck around about it? Just say it's mine, I want to keep it. Like, what's he going to do with it? Nothing. It just seemed a bit odd.
Exactly.
She's very back and forth about it.
Yeah, a bit of contrived tension. And like it's, I found it quite funny in this episode. It's like Tom and Jerry. It's like, okay, Kate's got it, and now Sawyer's stolen it back, and then Kate stole it off him again, and Sawyer took it back. And then there's a bit where Sawyer's trying to get the case open, which was quite funny, I must admit.
Okay, I love that bit. I did love that sequence.
Yeah, same.
She just pops out. She just grabs it.
But I think this is why I don't always find Kate a well-written character, because of little things like that. And it's not to say that Evangeline Lilly's bad. It's just that the writers choose to put really daft things in, and it just it just waters down the character that she could have been.
Yeah, I think so. Maybe it's a case of trying to keep some air of mystery about her at the minute. You know, she's very elusive, but it doesn't really ring true. And I say it just does seem contrived, just for the sake of making her seem more of a mystery than maybe she is at the minute. You know, that sort of goes along with the flashback a wee bit for me as well. It's like it wasn't really a surprise that Kate's in on it. You know.
Yeah, I know what you mean. And also, it feels like it's just something to push the plot along. Like, the writers almost thought, yeah, people will realize that we're not quite sure how to get from A to B. We've got this middle section, but we'll just do these little bits. Every show does it, but it's just frustrating, that's all. Oh, so we get to a bit of Shannon and Boone, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we've just mentioned in the prior episode, is she's asking Boone what her and John are up to, Mr. Locke, every day when they go to the jungle. He says they're looking for Claire, but also they're not finding any food, if I'm right in thinking. The boars are drying up, I think is what's said. Their excuse is that the boars are going elsewhere because they know they're getting hunted.
Yeah, I think Locke says that to Jack, at least in some regard as well. They're adapting because they know there's a hunter, so they're. But I think Boone says it in a more sort of less eloquent way.
Yep, and then I've got something written here as well. I've put it's very 90210. Boone gets upset and calls Shannon useless.
Yeah, I've got it written down. Line of the episode.
Yeah. And it was kind of one of the moments where I was like, do you know what? I like Boone at this moment.
Yeah.
But that's what I've just got. It was very 90210.
Well, she was like fucking teasing him because he was hanging out with Locke. And he's such an arsehole because she's just sitting there just tanning all the time. But then, ironically, after this, I mean, you probably got note down it, but we get the first interaction, proper interaction between Saeed and Shannon, which kickstarts this whole relationship.
Yeah.
So she's not going to be useless, quote unquote.
Yeah, I thought it was.
She has a reason.
I thought it was quite funny. Like when Saeed's asking her to translate the thing, and I can't remember how it works, how she works her way around to this, but she was like, "Yeah, I remember a song from Finding Nemo." I was like, "All right,
that's it." What was Lindelof thinking?
I've got her line here, like a dialogue, like her response when she says, "Oh, I saw a cartoon about fish." One of the computer ones. That's exactly what she called it.
Oh, good God.
One of the computer ones.
I've seen a film about a toy, one of the computer ones as well. Jesus Christ.
It's something like a 60-year-old would bloody say.
Yeah.
I don't even think my grandparents would say that. They'd say animated.
They'd just say a cartoon, wouldn't they? But it's just the way she
a cartoon.
From the computer.
Yeah. Wow. That's very clunky. Oh, dear. But yeah, we get, like you've said, we get the beginnings of Saeed and Shannon, which always felt very forced to me. It felt like the show was trying to pitch another romance in there, aside from your Jack, Sawyer, and Kate love triangle.
It seemed pretty ill-judged to me because of the fact that we learned about Saeed and what happened to, forgive me, I can't remember her name.
Nadia?
Nadia. Yes. And when he goes through talking to Russo about her, and then a few episodes later on, he wants to bump uglies with
Shannon.
Shannon, like useless Shannon. It's just, okay, we get it. There's a point to it that he wants to obviously utilize her French-speaking skills. But even though...
Va-va-voom.
However, it's quite obvious that they're pushing the romance because they keep doing the googly eyes. And it's obvious.
That's it. So it's not, for me, when Naveen Andrews enters the fold speaking to her, it's not even like just obviously how he's been told to play that character, but he doesn't even just go in and say hello, and they have a conversation like, I don't know, Hurley and Claire might. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's or Jack and Claire or someone. It's instantly like, I know what's going on here. I know what they're trying to go for. He's like got that that side eye look, and he's doing his hair almost, and you just think, no, this
And
is too
also,
full on.
I think Bone, the camera goes to Bone for a reaction shot, so it's even given more like ground. You know what I mean? Like,
This next episode is going to be brilliant to talk about.
Oh my god!
I cannot wait. I really can't. We've got that romance established slightly.
Sorry.
I'm just looking at my notes. I haven't got much more written down apart from Kate goes into Sawyer's tent whilst he's sleeping to try and get the case. He wakes up. They have a bit of a struggle. He's a bit flirty with her again. Refuses to give her the case and such.
Mm-hmm. There's some nice stuff with Rose and Charlie.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
Oh yeah, is that this episode where they just sit?
Yeah.
Charlie cries, and he set me off.
Yeah, it's quite nice. Like, I think it ends with them all sitting around like the campfire, and she's saying a prayer for Charlie, and it's a really quite nice scene because Charlie's just really downtrodden, and yeah, he's not having the best time at the minute, and yeah, I know what you mean about nearly setting you off. It's a really good scene, and I'm always happy when Rose turns up. She could sort of be a very cliched character, but I think she plays it really well. I can't remember the actress's name actually, but yeah, it's very well done.
She's kind of like the mother hen, isn't she? At this point,
yeah.
Even though she's a bit, she's not speaking much, but whenever she turns up, she's always so wise.
Yeah,
but,
I love Rose. I think she, I think she's only had like 3 or 4 speaking scenes, but they're all quite important moments for characters.
Yeah, and again, I think we've said this before in some of the more lesser liked episodes, shall we say? It's always littered with good moments, but it feels like, to me, the writers wanted, well, not that they could have done more with those moments, but they had those moments ready. They knew what they wanted to do with them, but they just needed to put it in an episode and base it around something, and they couldn't necessarily write well for that, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I would say so. Yeah, because like the revelation at the end is pretty unsatisfying because you find out what was in the safety deposit box in the envelope, and it's a plane. And that means nothing. Like everything else has had a resolution that you sort of understand how they got there. This is just, it's not even a resolution. It's just, again, another question for another episode. So overall, it just feels very unsatisfying.
Yeah, Lindelof again. when seriously though, I really like him as a writer, but sometimes, like all good writers, he just gives into his own tendencies sometimes, and I don't even think he realizes how, like you say, he's not really resolved. He's not really done an episode here. It's just images that don't really come together in any form.
Yeah.
And like you say, it means absolutely squat.
Yeah.
Why should we care?
Just to the point that we're talking about positives in regards to all like the side plot or like just moments which are irrelevant to the central plot. Just says it all. Like he clearly. Like those moments are better than the actual main plot of the story. So it just shows a bit of a. Of course, he was cutting his teeth in writing, I guess, at this point. But it just shows a bit of an inexperience. But obviously that improves. Of course,
I think he's great with characters. I think he really knows how to write characters. So that stands to reason with the side plots and these little individual moments. Definitely. But as an overall arc plotter, like you say, at this point, perhaps he's not quite got it yet. I think obviously as he goes through his career, he gets a lot better. And I don't blame him for Prometheus either, because that wasn't his fault. Just whilst I'm thinking about it. Because that film angers me so much. So other than that, I don't really know what else there is.
What's our thoughts on Jack's involvement with the Kate thing? Because I quite like the way that Jack, initially he's like, he helps Kate. He goes to Sawyer and he's like, right, give me the case or something, and Sawyer obviously mocks him and says, "Oh, you're getting her to do your dirty work for you." But then it ends up in Kate trying to hide the key from Jack which is in the wallet of the Marshal. And he calls her out and says, "Ah, a nice little sleight of hand trick," and he's pissed. And I thought, okay.
Oh yeah. Actually, you're right.
That was the only interesting part of that plot that I thought was there. Was Jack.
And you know why, don't you? Matthew Fox. He's back. He's back. I must admit, I quite liked it because you know how normally in the triangle of that whole dynamic, it's normally Jack's quite central and obviously Kate, but then Sawyer sometimes takes a backseat. This time round, it's Kate and Sawyer are quite central, and Jack comes in every now and then. And I think that quite works. That works quite well.
Yeah, because it's not. It's kind of like the reverse of what we normally, of what we used to. But then when Sawyer comes in, he kind of shakes it up a bit, and he makes things a bit more interesting. And this is what happens with Jack in this episode.
I agree. No, anything with Matthew Fox is valid and definitely shakes up. Because if I'm right, he's quite dismissive of her. She starts crying, and he's like, "Yeah, screw you, I'm walking away."
Oh yeah, he is. Yeah, because he obviously trusts her, and he's entrusted her with, what he's told her and revealed to her, and he thought that she would be the same, and she's shown some of her truer colours, being a bit of a snidey liar.
Where did we get to? Oh yeah, and I guess the nice little bit at the end, bar the toy plane, which makes zero sense, is Rose and Charlie together because she still believes Bernard's alive, which obviously later on down the line he is, but Charlie prays with her, if I'm right. And now I'm not a religious man, but it's a very lovely moment. I think it's a very tender moment because obviously he's in withdrawals and he's lost his closest confidant on the island at this point, who he clearly does have a thing for, and he's feeling a lot of guilt and blame. And it's just a lovely moment that even if he's not that way inclined, that Rose is there for him in that capacity. It was just lovely, really.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a much more it has much more of an impact, that scene, than Saeed making Google eyes at Shannon. They're all it does that.
God, yes.
Long shot of the beach and passes all the different or not couples, but everybody sitting together, and you have it starts off with Charlie, and then it goes to Saeed and Shannon. And it's just like, yes, she might be singing Under the Sea, but this doesn't really work for me. From that computer fish movie. Yeah, no, it's a very nice scene. It is very effective. I think no matter what your belief system, I think it's just a nice scene. It's a
poignant moment, and it's just nice to know that Lost, with whatever you think of the show, it does have these moments of nice moments.
Yeah.
But with that, I think that's about it, really.
Oh, sorry, I just had one more note. It's
Go for it.
The very start of the episode, whenever they Kate and Sawyer go swimming. Sawyer goes swimming with his jeans on, and it bugged me for the entire episode. Don't do that.
Yeah, because obviously Evangeline Lilly keeps a top on, but not a lower half.
Yeah, well, yeah, I suppose that too. But also, Sawyer is the type of person that he's even done it in the series before. He's just goes for swimming. Yeah. It's like, okay.
Yeah, because he walks out of the ocean, doesn't he? And Kate's looking at him, and he's like, "Oh, hey, Freckles." Oh God, Sawyer. Yeah, more narrative inconsistencies. Anyway, there's a few of them. Let's be honest. All right, so next week we'll be doing Hearts and Minds and Special, which are episode 13 and 14 of season 1, and we have, unfortunately, a Boone episode in episode 13, and episode 14, I believe, is Mr. Michael and his son Walt. So we will have a lot of fun things to say about this, I believe. This is everything this podcast has been building to.
This is Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice.
This is, well, I like that film, but yes, Batman vs Superman.
Hey, there we go.
That ultimate cut. So with that, we'll say goodbye.